Austrian climber found guilty after girlfriend froze to death on mountain. When I first heard about this and I saw alpine divorce going viral online, I kind of thought that it was an over exaggeration, at least at the time. In my head, the story was there's a couple who go to a mountain hike and the girl gets tired, so the boy leaves to get help. And by the time that he's able to get help, unfortunately, she dies, which is an unfortunate series of events, but it didn't seem like it was his fault. At least that's what I thought at the time. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm not much of an outdoorsy person, so I didn't really know much about what someone is supposed to do or what safety protocols there are, etc., etc. And the more I learn, the more I learn, the more horrified I get. On surface, it looks like, oh, he did the most reasonable thing, but it's not that at all, let me tell you. An Austrian climber has been found guilty of gross negligent manslaughter after his girlfriend froze to death on Austria's highest mountain last year. His girlfriend, Kristen G, died of hypothermia during climbing trip on the Grossglockner mountain in January 2025. The judge, Norbert Hofer, himself an experienced climber who works with mountain and helicopter rescue teams in Tyrol, said Thomas P. was an excellent alpinist. Alpinist? Alpinist? Oh, but that his girlfriend was light years behind him in terms of her climbing ability. Prosecutors say as the more experienced climber, the man on trial was the responsible guide for the tour, and he failed to turn back or call for help in time to help his girlfriend. At stake is the question of when personal judgment and risk taking become a matter of criminal liability. If the if the climber is found guilty, it could mean a paradigm shift for mountain sports. Now, right from the beginning, before they even began the climb, there were multiple things that were wrong. First, his girlfriend had never undertaken an alpine tour of this length or difficulty or altitude. And on top of that, there were challenging weather conditions as well. But he was already very experienced in high altitude alpine tours and had planned a tour. Second, they started out 2 hours too late. Third, they did not have enough emergency bivouac equipment. Fourth, he also allegedly allowed his girlfriend to use snowboard soft boots that is not at all suitable for a high altitude tour like they were going for. All of these things were from the very beginning, before they started the tour, before they started climbing. My question is, well, why did he? Well, he's the more experienced climber. Why did he do this? And the only possible conceivable answer that I can think of is, well, he just didn't give a shit. He just didn't give a shit. How can I say that? Well, you see all of these things that I mentioned about her girlfriend not having the proper boots, her girlfriend not being experienced, and still them starting 2 hours late, them not having emergency equipment. It all doesn't really involve him. All of those things are about his girlfriend. None of them concern him. He is not the one that doesn't have experience. He has plenty of experience. He doesn't need the emergency equipment because he knows that he can do this. Him starting 2 hours late, also not a problem. He is more experienced climber. And his girlfriend having the wrong boots, well, it's not him. It doesn't matter. Quite literally, that's the only thing I can think of. Because if you give even a little bit of a fucking shit, then any of those things would be like, hey, let's stop, let's change this, okay? He apparently alleges that, oh, they planned the tour together, which they might have. But then how is it that he thought it was okay for her, someone who doesn't have as much experience as climbing high altitude alpine tours, not having proper boots, starting 2 hours late. I just don't get it. How can they both plan it together and this is what they arrive at? That doesn't make any sense. What I think, now this is just a hypothesis. Now, what I think happened was just that she trusted him. She trusted him. He said it was okay. He didn't think twice about it because it doesn't concern him, but she trusted him. After the climb began, 2 hours late, that is, they arrived at essentially it's the point of the tour at which there is no turning point before the summit. So if you're gonna turn around now, that's the moment, okay? And it even has like a little disclaimer thing that hey, if it took you more than 3 hours to get there, fucking leave. That's not what it says. It says something like, oh, if it took you more than 2 hours to get here, you should really not move forward with this and you should turn back around right now. Which it took them like 5 hours. And they should have turned around right then and there. Prosecutors say the couple got stuck about 8:50 p.m. and that the man failed to call the police and did not sound any distress signals when a police helicopter flew overhead around 10:50. But shortly afterwards, apparently the situation had changed dramatically. To the man's complete surprise, the woman suddenly showed increased signs of exhaustion, although by then turning back was too late. In the beginning, I was thinking, well, what do you mean by that? That, oh, she suddenly started feeling more exhausted. That doesn't make any sense. I maybe she was communicating with him the whole time and he was just finding her annoying. And then, oh no, suddenly she just doesn't have the energy and she's just utterly exhausted after he turned away the police helicopter. Who could have fucking thunken that? And you might be like, well, what do you mean by that? Annoyed for expressing exhaustion? What do you mean by that? I'll get into that later. I will get into that later. There's a reason why I say that. So part of me thinks that. There is another part of me that says that maybe that did happen. Maybe at one point she hit a limit and was extremely exhausted. And there might be some evidence to that. Forensic pathologist Claudia was confirmed to the court that she, Kristen, had died of hypothermia, adding that she found evidence of viral pneumonia and the painkiller ibuprofen in Kristen's body. She was unable to assess whether her physical capacity had been impaired by the illness and if it had made a sudden decline in her condition more likely. So it is possible that due to pneumonia, she just hit a breaking point and was just completely and utterly exhausted. It's possible. However, if that was the case, wouldn't there be other signs that he might have noticed? A very obvious one that even I can think of, that a person who has never done mountain climbing or anything like that, is just how long it took them to make the climb. They arrived at the point of no return in 6 hours, and the sign there quite literally says, hey, if it took you more than 2 years, turn back around, like right now. It's just a very obvious sign. And I highly doubt that there are not things that he would have noticed, which just brings me to the point that he just didn't give a shit. If A, pneumonia didn't really affect her physical capacity, then I am pretty sure that she was telling him the whole time that she's exhausted and she doesn't want to go any further. But he took it as her being annoying, and simply when she reached the point of no return, he was completely and utterly Pikachu faced. Or B, her pneumonia did affect her physical capacity, and the moment when she was completely exhausted was just the moment that she hit her physical capacity. Then he just didn't give a shit or like didn't notice any other signs, very obvious things that he should have noticed, which points to he just didn't give a shit. Now, I do want to point out I was not there. I don't know what happened. I'm not a psychic. So I can't really say that she did try to communicate with him and he just categorized it as her being annoying. I can't say that for sure. And I mean, who can really? It's not like he had another girlfriend he did the exact same thing to at the exact same mountain in 2023, which he did. He fucking did. The court also heard from Andrea B., a former girlfriend of Thomas, who described how he left her alone on a previous tour in 2023. She said she had been at the end of her tether, feeling dizzy, and her headlight had gone out. She said she was crying and screaming when he suddenly disappeared, walking ahead and leaving her behind. So he leaves his girlfriend around 2 a.m. He did not use aluminum rescue blankets or other gear to protect her from the cold. Additionally, a couple of hours earlier, he put his phone on silent and did not take any more calls, allegedly, by the police. That's what they said. After that, he waited until 3:30 a.m. before notifying emergency services. Did he really hate her that much? Did he really hate her that much? Was she that annoying that he would rather wait and take a chance with her life. Because if she is dead, then he did try to help her. He would be able to sleep at night thinking that, oh well, I did try to help her. It's not my fault that she died. And he would have gotten rid of her. That's isn't that great? That sounds horrible, but like, that's the thing that's going through my mind. Like, goddamn, why? There's no other. He just didn't give a shit. Why am I bringing it up? Because he did the same exact thing to his ex before he did it to Kristen. But in that case, the girl survived and broke up with him. By the time that he did notify the emergency services, it was already too late. The strong winds meant that no helicopter rescue could take place, and Kristen died alone in the snow on the frozen mountainside. I've been going through Reddit, comment section, everywhere, and it is so common. I can't believe how common this is. There's so many stories of women going on a hike only to realize that, oh no, he meant fucking mountain climbing. And she's not prepared for that whatsoever. No gear, none of that. And then he just leaves her because she's too slow. Who could have fucking thunken that? There are so many stories regarding this. This is from Reddit. When I was 21, I was dating a climber who taught me how to climb. I was really naive and I thought that his explosive anger while climbing, hiking, or backpacking was due to my beginner status. Anyway, he never fully abandoned me. One time he abandoned me at the parking lot of a small mountain in Oregon. The police pulled him over on his way out of the park and I was heading down the road. The police told him if I ever did that again, they would arrest him. Anyway, that wasn't the last time he abandoned me. He would just be filled with rage and either stomp off during the trail or throw my things off the cliff or the trail. What? That's insane! Oh my god! I finally wised up and accepted that he was abusive enough. Good for you! Good for you, Hello Kitty and pizza. I'm glad that you're out of that situation. Whew. This is again from Reddit. The Austria case is even worse. He had done the same thing to a previous romantic partner, but she managed to survive and get help. This is way common of a phenomenon. Men leaving partners behind don't have ability to self-regulate risk. They overestimate skills and competence. I experienced this as a SAR volunteer when a man took his wife and waited until she was hypothermic, then managed, after 3 days, to suddenly know how to walk the 4 hours to help. Days spent searching them, helicopters searching overhead. He did it on purpose. Every member of his team felt that way. I have rescued more than a few couple where the guy lets his ego go wild and leads them to the dangerous decisions. This is again from Reddit. I haven't experienced the alpine divorce while hiking, but my ex partner would frequently leave me behind while walking after we had a baby. One time I was carrying the baby and walking a little dog on a leash when my partner decided to cut through a private property during a walk. I followed because he was familiar with the area, but he quickly sped off. The property owner's dog attacked my dog and I got bitten while holding overhead. The owners came out and looked at me like I was crazy for appearing in the yard. I was confused and scared and had jerked my dog by her neck with her leash. He also disappeared while walking with me at a music festival while I was pregnant in Canada. We live in Virginia, US. Needless to say, I stopped going anywhere with him without my own car and eventually stopped going anywhere with him. Good for you. Honestly, this is so fucking true. Again from Reddit. Oh yeah, I dated a guy who did this on nearly every hike we went on for years. 20 minutes into every hike we did, he just left me behind, never stopping for a breather or water break. I wouldn't see him until the summit, sometimes when he's on the descent already. I had absolutely no idea it was a common issue, and I thought I was just being sulky and dramatic because he always said we have different paces and that I'm just too slow, blah, 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 blah. And that was true. So I just thought, well, I was super out of shape and felt embarrassed. I was actually in great shape, but he was twice my size. So obviously, he's going to be faster. He did it so often it became a joke. When he'd ask if I want to go hiking together, I would say, you mean do I want to hike by myself and meet you at the summit? He also did this when walking around in public spaces, even when traveling in other countries. Randomly, he would just stop talking, pick up his walking pace, and fucking leave me. Many times I had to find my own way home or back to the hotel. I wish I trusted my instincts. Now, this is my experience just a couple of days ago. Not romantic partner, none of that. Okay, I was babysitting for a friend And this person, he's a neighbor. And he also often babysits the girl that I'm babysitting. Technically, we're both doing it together. Anyway, so he decides to take her to this like little kids area thing. I don't know what it's called, but they have these ball pits and big slides and whatnot. And so he decides, you know what, let's take her there. And he wants me to tag along as well because it'll only be half an hour. It'll only be half an hour. In the end, it was around 2.5 hours or something like that. But that's not the major point. The main moment wasn't the ball pit thing or the slides or whatever. It was him on the side of the road and the girl that I'm supposed to be babysitting on the side of the road, and she just wants to run into on incoming traffic. Now, mind you, this is in the evening. There are lots of cars going by, and I am trying very hard to make sure that she doesn't, you know, hurt herself. And while I'm trying to, make sure that she doesn't do that, he's like, "Oh, why don't you just let her roam around?" And I'm like, "Dude, there are cars. Literally, the cars are just going by right now. What do you mean?" And he's like, "Oh, just if the car comes, just stop the car." I'm like, "What do you mean stop the car?" He's like, "Okay, use your hand and just, they will see you, they'll stop the car." And I'm like, "What do you mean by that?" And I didn't argue back with that, but I also didn't get it at the time, and I still don't get it. Like, what the fuck do you mean by that? And anyways, I actually left a little abruptly. As soon as the mother came, I left. And when I came home, I didn't even realize just how stressed I was during this time. I ended up crying just to release that stress from my body. Because if anything happened to her while she was under my supervision, I wouldn't be able to forgive myself. And his reaction to it, complete nonchalant reaction, and I don't get that. I still don't get it. And yes, he also had the habit of just walking away and me and the girl following her. Of course, I can obviously keep up with him, but there's a toddler. So I have to, match her pace. I can't just leave her behind. Anyways, man, this is insane. This is crazy. Needless to say, I am not gonna be around him. But yeah, I will not be put in a stressful situation like that ever again. Now, I just want to point out that I think the reason why this is gaining popularity is first because it's way more common than people realize. And second, situations like this specifically are the straw that break the camel's back. People who do this literally do not give a shit about you. People who do this, I cannot imagine being amazing, helpful, thoughtful partners or even friends. I can't imagine that. And this moment where he leaves her behind on a mountain hike is just the moment that the woman realizes that, hey, it really feels like my partner doesn't give a shit about me. Which yeah, I think so. At least if they do that. Now there is another point that people do bring up. That is the woman's perspective. In Kristen's case,